Welcome back to the Tech Aunties podcast. I'm Gina Rosenthal, CEO and founder of Digital Sunshine Solutions.
And I'm Marian Newsom. I'm an IEEE certified AI strategy and governance consultant.
And we have a guest with us today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Dean. I'm the founder and CEO of MarketDean, which is a marketing agency based in DC. It's a combination management consulting meets creative agency. I'm excited to be here.
I am too. We finally get to talk to somebody in my situation. I'm excited about talking about AI with you. So this is going to be really great. We also have a little audience. We're here. We're recording this live. We're going to release it at a later date. We're at the Capital Factory House during South by Southwest. So we've been meeting super interesting people from the audience. I'm sure they're going to have a lot to say as well. And I'm going to pass it back to Marian now.
So Jamie, marketing is a really broad field. Why did you choose to really focus on marketing with measurable results?
Well, I think for two reasons. One is I came into it 20 some years ago. It wasn't considered a business practice, right? It was, but people kind of had this impression that it's like, oh, you make pictures and words. And there were difficulties measuring the effectiveness of it. There are ways to do it, but not a lot. And so I think as someone who is passionate about the power of words and imagery to move people, to make decisions, that kind of stuck in my craw. The other piece is that the technology around it has evolved considerably since then. And obviously data tracking and things of that nature, but also even the field of neuromarketing. And so a lot of the things that we knew instinctively were effective, now there is science, both on the data side and on the psychology side to support it. So for me and my clients, I think that I can give them evidence of effectiveness that draws back to specific things, which is gratifying for them, but also my own personal see.
Okay.
It works.
And so we have this week we've been focused on AI. And so we've been asking our guests the impact of AI on your industry and your expertise. And so is it hype or is it a ray of digital sunshine?
Neither.
Neither.
Okay.
Neither. It is not. Well, so obviously AI is affecting marketing, right? You hear about it all the time. You hear about content development, both written as well as design and graphics and video and all these fun things. So there's a ton of opportunity there. But I worked on a thought piece when I was with a former company for this guy who's at NVIDIA now. And he's my favorite nerd, right? He's like AI pro. And so the thought piece was called, It's Not Magic. AI is not magic. It is math and engineering that is being applied to a number of different things. And so I think it's not hype to say that it can do a lot of things to make our lives easier and better. But neither is it a panacea of fixing everything. It's like any other technology tool. It is a tool.
Well, I see Gina has some thoughts.
Well, we haven't picked on Sam Altman today.
I know you were going to say that. I knew it.
Did you hear the quote from Sam Altman? It's quoted from a new book that he's in, saying that 95% of agency jobs will be washed away, not needed, because of AI.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's hard to say, right? So for me, it's like any kind of art, right? There's a balance of art and science, right? And AI is the science part of it, but art is not objective. It is by nature subjective, and I don't think that you could, with the caveat that I'm not a data scientist, right? And I don't build machine learning or AI, but I don't personally think that you can train technology to be subjective. I think it's completely counter to training them on data. They need to have the objectivity. And so when we were talking previously, right? Like I use ChatGPT to produce content. And I'm curious about some of the tools that could produce a slide deck. Because there have been times when I'm hiking and I can see the deck in my head, but by the time I have to go home and it just takes so much longer and it's never quite, you've lost that thought. So,
right.
So I'd love to try that kind of stuff. But even with a ChatGPT, it'll give me a response. It'll save me time and it's almost right. But there is an artfulness that I think comes from instinct and experience and being a human that you still have to fix it. And so I think it depends on what kind of agencies you're talking about.
Right.
If you're cool with, if it's good enough, sure. Yeah. But if you want truly refined, effective branding, marketing, content, I think you need to have a human in the loop somewhere.
I agree. And of course, I have an agency as well.
Right.
So we use, and I've said this week before, we use Jasper AI, mostly because all of their stuff is tuned for marketing content, so maybe try it. I don't know if I haven't tried it for Dex because we do things a little differently, but it's very good for campaigns, especially just setting up the whole campaign. But I agree, it's the same thing. It's like we have the spark and the idea, and that's after working with the clients to hear what their expectations are, then creating it, and then going back and forth with the client to fine tune it once it's there, which hopefully is not a ton. But yeah, I think a human has to be involved for that spark. And that spark comes from experience, creativity, sometimes just pure talent as well.
Yeah. Actually, I saw, it was Instagram probably, right? Because I'm too old for TikTok. But, and it was somewhere in Europe.
No
I'm not
one's
going to
too
say
old
it.
for TikTok.
So some video from Instagram, somewhere in Europe, they had a machine, like an autonomous bricklayer. And it laid brick. It did. My grandfather was a brick mason.
Okay.
He would have hated that wall. There was no artfulness to it. Will it stand up? Yep. Like, was the mortar where it's supposed to be? Sure. Was it plumb? Maybe. But you could look at that wall and see that it was mass production.
Yeah.
And so I think it's true of any industry, whether it's marketing or construction or whatever. There's a difference between a human touch and what a machine can do.
Well, I know I've said this a bunch this week too, but I'm like a little professor. I'm very technical and I like to write. And a lot of times my stuff doesn't translate well. I have people help me do the more fluffy stuff, as the technical people call it. But sometimes I'll try to use Jasper and to get that, really cool sounding, sexy line to put in on a title of a blog post or a tweet. And the team will look at me when they read it, before we send it out. It smells like AI.
You didn't write that. Yeah.
Like, well, I thought it sounded cool. No, it doesn't sound cool. It smells like AI. I think we got to tune a little more. So there's always I think that problem right now is it doesn't have a voice. It just has everybody's voice from the whole entire universe. Right
now. It doesn't feel authentic, right? And at the end of the day, especially things like branding and marketing, it's about connection. It's about, there's data that says the two fastest ways to create trust are authenticity and gratitude. And even, like I'm polite to ChatGPT. I do say please and thank you.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, because it's just, again, it's home training, right? You do that.
Right.
When it says it back, oh, you're welcome. I hope you have a wonderful day, because it does. I'm like,
Yes, it does.
If you're nice to it, it's nice to you. But in my heart, I'm like, you don't mean that.
It doesn't have a heart.
It can't, right? And so, I think you always going to get a degree of shallowness or emptiness in the content that you get out that you have to humanize to make it most effective.
Oh, absolutely. Because that's the whole, as marketers, that's what we do. We try to figure out how do we connect with this target audience,
right?
Make an emotional connection with the audience with our words or our images, and it can't do that.
And there's sometimes when, I'll be honest, like sometimes chef's kiss is exactly what I needed. When we were working on abstracts for all these sessions we had during South by, I would just dump, and I'm like, please do the thing. And it saved me hours and hours of work. And I had to make some nuanced edits, but it got it pretty close. I've used it for proposal development, right? So here's the market, here's the industry, give me a template. And again, I have to adjust it. But things like that, operational things, I think it's super valuable.
I agree. I would agree with that.
So are your clients actually requesting more of AI or pushing that as a market differentiator for themselves, or?
No, certainly not. I think that, my particular clients, right, tend to be not the most advanced in some of the marketing things. So no, but they're also open to it. And I found that from us using it, we actually have clients who are starting to use it for some of their work as well. But no, I haven't had anybody saying, oh, you should be using this. You could cut costs if you use this. I think it's more just finding the opportunity in the work that we're already doing.
And I think with the example you gave of all of the abstracts is a great example because it's tedious,
Right.
very tedious, and your mind kind of goes numb after an hour or so, and it takes a while to get it all done.
Yeah.
So being able to, and there's so much to do for an event like this to get everything, all the T's crossed and I's dotted. Having the stuff that makes your mind go numb, that you just kind of put off to the last minute because you can't bear to think about sitting for 5 hours and doing it. It just takes that stress off. Preparing for something allows you to creatively look at something else.
Yeah, and even things. So I mentioned we have the house at 800 Congress this week, right? And even the activations that we wanted to do there, the tech activations, I was able to say needs to feel like this. Here's the menu, if you will, and here are the ingredients. Do that.
Do the thing.
Do the things. And so it does the things, and then you refine it. So I think, again, it is a useful tool, but it is based on math and engineering, and I don't think it's ever going to be the thing that can take over the magic. It's never going to be the magic. It can be a thing that creates foundation for it, but never the magic.
So it still comes back to human connection.
I think so.
And really messaging to that human on the other end. It could be maybe a co-partnership with technology, but at the end of the day, the human is the more primary driver.
I think it has to be because, go back to my smells like AI. It learns and it keeps learning. So if we just rely on generative AI to write everything for us, everything's going to smell like AI, and no one's going to connect with anything I try to use for marketing.
Yeah, I think there might be an arc where people move toward it and then a move back toward authenticity. Yeah. Which you see that happening in other areas, right? Where people have even technology, even the way we live. There was a time when people wanted to have big name brands. Not that they don't now still, right? But people want to live in cities and have all the conveniences. And now you see people going back to growing their own food, things like that. And so I think it's just part of being a human being. And a new shiny toy comes up. You want to play with it. You determine whether or not it has value, to what extent. You use it. And then you recenter at some point and get back to the things that make you more grounded. Yeah. I hope that's what happens. Maybe I'm going to will it into the universe. I'm going to manifest authenticity. And
I think it has to happen. I think we'll go back to the authentic. I think the other thing, and you might see this in some of the stuff you were working on too, is going back to the idea of communities, because that kind of got away from us as people use social media, because social media became also very hard to get past all of the marketing. Right. After it got very popular.
Right.
So communities kind of went to the wayside. So I'm hoping we'll see a return of that as well.
I hope so too. I was thinking, do you ever read The Purple Cow, Seth Godin? Anybody remember that?
Yes, that's a long time ago.
I know. I told you I've been doing it for 20 years. But I was thinking about that this morning and how it's word of mouth still. Like even social, it's still word of mouth. Yeah. We're taking it from someone we trust. We buy the toothpaste by who we trust. The problem, as I see it, is that we trust what we see on social. I think that media literacy has not that I think we ever had great media literacy as a country, but especially now with social, I think media literacy has plummeted, and people have no idea how to dismantle truth from fiction in what they're seeing.
Totally.
But I do think that as humans, we can't ever get away from word of mouth. Even, there's data that says the reason that people respond to a particular brand is because neurologically we can't differentiate between what's a human and what's in corporate, like what's an entity. Our lizard brain still sees person. So that's why if you do branding, you look for a brand archetype or the personification of that brand. It's because of how our brains work. Thanks to neuromarketing, we can prove that now. And so at some level, we're all looking for connection. Right. So without that, whether it's branding or social or anything, it's going to fall flat eventually.
And we don't think that the AIs of the world would generative can do that for us.
I would love for someone to create that. Because I could still run, why not? I could still run an agency because you still need someone to know what the objective needs to be.
That's
I
true.
think just like now, people, I mean, you've been in this field for a long time as well. How many people have you worked with who think that because they literally know how to write words, they can create content?
This is very
Right?
true.
Or because that they understand how Photoshop works, that they are now a designer. And so I don't see why it would be any different than AI. Like, even if you learned how to use the tool, the technology, if you're not skilled in the practice,
Right.
so what?
Still not effective.
So what? So if I can make more money, have more clients, do the same work, have high quality, and use tools that let me do that, sure.
I like that.
Sure.
I like that idea a lot. I like money too.
Yay. Balance, right? Money for
Oh,
good.
you've converted her.
I converted her to money. Well, it's both, right? Money is freedom. That's all
That's
it
what
is.
it is. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's freedom to help more people.
It is. It is.
Especially if you like what you're doing, which I think,
Yeah.
you know, that old expression, it doesn't feel like work. Some days it feels like work.
Most definitely.
But if it's gratifying,
Writing 24
abstracts are
is
not
work.
gratifying. Abstracts are not gratifying
It's a lot of work.
at all. Yeah.
So one of the questions we've been asking all of our guests is, we're called the Tech Aunties or Aunties, depending on where you're from. First of all, how do you pronounce it?
Well, I'm not from Dallas, so I'll say aunties, but everybody I know in Texas is aunties.
Okay. And then what does the significance of an auntie or auntie mean to you?
Oh my. So I grew up with a bunch of uncles, not as many aunties. So, but I think it's similar. It's an extension of family, of trust, the place where I can go for backup if I need it, for caretaking if I need it, for course correction if I need it. It's the expansion of the bubble around the place that I hold in the world.
I like that.
That's a nice way to put
I
it.
like that.
Okay. Is that what you guys are? Is that how you see yourselves, as the Tech Auntie?
We see ourselves in very different ways, but yeah, we're getting there. But I do think we are a resource that you can come to trust, because we're not all hype. We cut through the hype for people, and we come from a perspective of, hey, we've worked in big tech. We want to help the startups and the people who are really out there being their authentic selves in their company and what they're doing. And I'll let you.
Yeah, if I'm honest, where I kind of got the name from with push of it was, I have some friends who have a podcast called the Graybeards. So I've read what they've written my entire career, and they're awesome friends now. And I was trying to get one of them to come out here, but that kind of fell through. But I didn't. I just always told them I don't want to be a graybeard. I've been in the industry long enough now. I've got a lot to give back. I waxed beards. I don't want that. So what could we be called instead? Because I think there's also like a different kind of energy your aunts bring to you, your aunties bring to you, than your uncles. Uncles are a whole nother story.
They are. They are a whole. Yeah. Well, you know, talking about your focus on startups and small businesses, marketing AI, I think it's great for those kinds of companies, even like mine, right? We're small. Does IBM need it? Do large companies like that need it? Maybe not. But if you're a founder and you want to produce content quickly without having to pay a staff of people, is it going to be the best thing in the market? No. But neither would some companies who you would pay to do it. You might get the same quality and be able to produce it faster. Right. And so I think that AI in general, but especially in this field of marketing, it can help support companies who are growing, who want to grow their brand impression, but maybe can't afford to drop hundreds of thousands of dollars into a true brand development project. Right. Canva even, right? Like, we use Canva.
Yeah.
And even I have folks who work for us freelance and also for agencies. Large brands use Canva.
Oh yeah.
So I think that the more technology that exists to help people who can benefit from it, that can help balance out the market a little bit. At least hopefully it will.
Yeah, I hope so. And I kind of come to it from being a product marketer in very big companies, and seeing the content get so watered down, just like smelling like AI. It's like,
Yep.
this smells like I don't know what.
It's empty. It doesn't
It
mean
doesn't
it's
mean
just
anything. It's
words.
not going to
Yeah.
connect all the work
Right.
we did, you
Yeah.
know. So the kind of one of the reasons I wanted to do fractional was, I can come and advise you on branding. I can come and do all that, but I can also write you a white paper.
Mhm.
I can write you I've got enough. That's where the AI for us isn't, we don't need it as much because I've got domain expertise that I draw on that is kind of some of the secret sauce we have, and I have employees the same way. So we've got good experience, can write things really fast, but where it does come in handy is keeping everything all together. And it's because companies want different types of things, and even kind of training them to do different things. That comes in handy to give artifacts to leave for them to do better things, and just improving on the templates and artifacts I developed and brought with me from those big companies. So I love the idea that people don't have to be in marketing and work for a big company. That's kind of the bigger thing, because there's so many, we've talked to so many young people today, this week, that can't find a job at all. And just want to tell them, just you learn good stuff in college. There's all sorts of things you can learn online. Just go out there and try something.
Try it.
It's nothing happening right now. Make your own. You'll be so
Right.
much happier in the
Right.
line. It might not work out perfect, and you might pick up a job in a year or two, and that's fine. Just try. Just go
Yeah.
do. You've got such a spark, and you want to do it. Just go do it.
I feel like
I think you can now. I think it's much
yeah,
easier.
for sure. Although I feel like I sense that kids these days, right? Like the folks the folks coming out of college feel so much pressure to get it right away.
Yeah.
And I don't remember feeling like that. Like I've had a number of young women especially come to me and say they're almost paralyzed because they don't know what to do with the thing, and they feel like they need to be an expert in it. And again, I think this goes back to the social stuff we were talking about, and they think that everybody's got to figure it out, which we don't.
Right.
But also they believe what they see, and they think that now, since they don't know what they want to do or how to get to the place that they wanted to get, they feel like they're a failure, and so they just kind of freeze. And what I always say is, to your point, just do something, right? Like, how do you move forward? You move forward. You just pick a thing. And in my career, the worst things that have ever happened are the best things that have ever happened.
Yeah.
And like in the moment, it sucks. So you're like, oh my God, how am I gonna get through this?
Exactly.
And then 3 years later, you're like, oh, thank gosh,
I'm
I'm
out of
so
that.
glad that
Yes,
happened, right? Because
yes.
I might not have had the strength or confidence or whatever to leave that situation had that not happened. And if it
Exactly.
hadn't, then I couldn't have had this.
Exactly.
So if technology makes that easier for them, great. But I worry that it's actually having the opposite effect for them.
They're just like paralyzing them because there's so much going on, right? Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. And it's unfortunate because I know even from working in the big companies, it was so great to see the new ideas come in because they're protected for a minute.
Yeah.
And you're like, say all the things
Right.
now. Yes, this is great. This is great. This is awesome. And try to protect them from too much bad happening, or from getting that one blowback that kind of makes them hold back. And I hate thinking that young people are coming out and being paralyzed, that talent and that energy is not being put out there in the world, because we need that.
We do.
Especially if we're going to get a lot of stuff that smells like AI. We need to have the kids come in and liven it up and say, pew, let's make it better.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep it real.
Keep it real. Yeah, because they will definitely, the young ones will, I thought we were supposed to make connections.
Yeah.
Right. Before we open up to the audience, I guess the last question I would have is, for someone who is really just starting out, what would be a really good piece of advice for them to really think about how they could start measuring their marketing and getting
Oh.
those results?
Ooh, okay. That's a fun one. Well, it depends on where you're starting out. And so my most honest answer is at the beginning, it doesn't matter. Don't spend a lot of money.
Okay.
Do the things that are going to give you the quick result. There's a cyber accelerator that I not pitch to, but I present to sometimes about branding and marketing. I'm like, look, there are some things you need to have. You need to have some kind of physical, digital presence, like a website, to prove that you exist.
Okay.
Use Wix. It's fine. Throw Google Analytics on there, and then you can track your traffic to the website, right? Use simple things like UTM tracking parameters so you know where things are coming from. But you don't have to have the bells and whistles. You don't have to have a fully activated lead generation campaign at the beginning. What's probably going to be more effective is to go places where people can see your face, get in conversations like here, where you can build human connections. Because at the end of the day, that's the way that people buy. Now, if you're selling a product, I think it's a bit different. I'm more in the services industry, but have a business card, have a LinkedIn profile, go to events, meet human beings, shake hands. Start there before you start pouring a bunch of money into any kind of tracking anything. Google Analytics is free.
Yeah.
UTM tracking is free. You can do that. And though we are a management consultant meets creative agency, I'm the cobbler's kids situation, right? Y'all know that story about cobbler's kids. It's probably
Same.
I might need to tell this for other folks, but cobbler's kids have no shoes. Cobbler makes shoes, right? The cobbler's kids' shoes have holes in them. Why? Because cobbler's making them for everybody else. And so that's been the case for us when it comes to marketing. But it has not at all inhibited our growth, simply because of the relationships. So I think start there. And then as you have a solid business plan that you can start to parse off bits of money, you don't even have to pay anybody at the beginning. To your point, there's tons of information out there. HubSpot has lots of great free articles. I love HubSpot as a tool in general, but if you can't afford to pay for it, use the knowledge that they are giving you for free.
They
And
have a free option too.
they do.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm not throwing shade at HubSpot. It's great that they have a free option. But man, that marketing professional really gets you a lot more, right? So, but yeah, it's a starting point. You can start to get familiar with it. So I think don't be afraid to help yourself. If time is limited, which is if you're a founder, it is, prioritize the human, because at the end of the day, that's going to open up the door so you can make more money, so you can get all the shiny little tools and hire people to help you.
That's great advice. Well, anyone in the audience have questions for Jamie?
Oh, we have a quiet audience this morning.
Oh no. Does that mean we just answered every question you could possibly have?
I have a question, but it's up because you're in marketing.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's Trudy, right?
It's Trudy. I'm the mic passer around person. So I know that you're doing marketing, right? And you're using the Chat GPT and things like that. What other technology are you using? Like, are you taking data and then presenting it, right? Which is what marketing is about, like, right? And then presenting it in a way that is digestible and connects people, like that human connection. Are you using anything like Tableau, or what programs are you using in your company to help you present data that's digestible?
So we're small, which means I'm not yet to a point where I'm pouring a ton of money into tools like Tableau, although I have some friends from IBM who work there and it's on my list. So right now it's spit and grit to get a lot of it done. We use things like Google Analytics. We use HubSpot. We use UTM tracking so that we can gauge how things are coming in through the pipeline and what the efficacy is of different techniques. But right now it's the HubSpot dashboard that gives you that basic presentation, and then folks analyzing it and putting it together manually. We're still doing it that way. Yeah. But it meets the need for now, right? And I think that's the point. There are tools that can help you, but if you can't afford them, you're not crippled by that.
Hey, my name is Ishika. I apologize for coming in late. I probably missed a lot of good stuff. But as a marketer, do you feel like you picked your target audience and you morphed your strategy to fit that audience, or did you discover your audience through testing and failing?
Ooh. So I think it depends. If you're talking about my client target, I definitely found my way into that through relationships. If you're talking about the sales target for your business, it should be a combination of both. So you should always start with research. You should endeavor to understand who needs the thing that you're giving to the world. Where do they buy? What sort of things are persuasive to them? What brand archetype is going to most resonate with them? Like deeply understand the person, the human being that you're targeting. So we do this exercise where we actually create the human, right? The personification of the brand persona or the target persona. And think about, where does she go? What is she wearing? How does she talk? How does she laugh? Like, just humanize that human in your brain. But then as you execute, you start to gauge whether or not that is resonating. You do things like A/B testing and say, okay, we thought that, we name her, right? So we thought Sally was going to like this. Sally does not seem to be into that. Or Sally preferred this more than this, so let's lean in more here. So I think it's trial and error in some cases, using the data that you glean to further synthesize your understanding of your audience.
And do you think that there is any, I guess, downfall for a startup for shifting brand strategy after testing out your MVP?
I think if you do it thoughtfully, right? We talked a bit earlier about authenticity. And so I think not being afraid to get it right and showing people that you're using data to pivot, and why would someone be mad about that, right? Versus the sunk cost fallacy where you're like, well, I already did this, guess I'll keep doing it. Well, that's silly.
Right.
So yeah.
Sorry to cut anyone off, but like one more question is, what was your initial like go-to market strategy? And if I missed it.
My initial one was hope and pray. So the way that I got into it was not by intention, right? It was through network, which probably certainly colors my perspective, but an opportunity came up and I had to establish an LLC because I was between jobs at one point. And so the opportunity came up and sure, let's do that. And so I did that. And then I have been fortunate that I haven't had to do a whole lot of active BD yet. It's come to me. So we're kind of in the process of doing that right now, where we're saying, okay, this is who we're really going to target because clearly there's an appetite for this that's not being met otherwise. And so we're doing things like placement and pricing and all that jazz, but it's informed, fortunately, by work we were already doing versus, so we found our way into the blue ocean, I think, which I don't know how helpful that is for someone else who's coming into it.
That's kind of how mine went too.
Yeah.
I'm exactly. How many years in are you?
Official. So I founded in 2017.
Okay.
But I've been doing it full time for 5 and change.
That's about how long I've been doing mine full time too. And
Yeah.
exact same situation.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's going to sound very ethereal, but it's the universe, right? The thing happens and the next thing happens and you find yourself in a place that
Absolutely.
maybe I don't know that I'm fairly certain because my background's all commercial marketing and y'all know that I'm in a different world right now.
Yes.
And I could say with utter confidence that 10 years ago, I would have never, ever picked, thought that I would be in this place. So I think just don't be afraid to fail. Understand you're gonna. Something's gonna go wrong and you're gonna screw it up. And so a colleague here locally, we were talking about exactly that, right? Like something is going to go the way you did not plan. And so it's, so what? Now what?
COVID.
Right. Right. Yeah. So just having the chutzpah to push through.
As I think we were talking earlier, maybe before you came in, about young people coming into the practice of being marketers, and the job market is just brutal, but just it's scary. But try. If you want, if there's any inkling inside of you to do your own thing, do it. If that's too scary, I know the time I was laid off the longest, I started getting really worried, couldn't find a job. I ended up doing tech work for a nonprofit. And I don't even think I got paid. I just did it. I volunteered. And it just reminded me, I do know how to do this.
Mhm.
And they loved it because they're like, oh my God, you're really great. And I was like,
I
oh,
know.
oh, I am great. I am great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just being able to practice the practice and do it, but not be afraid to fail
Mhm.
and put yourself out there. It's just so important.
The other thing I tell myself is whenever I'm scared, because I get scared, and every day you're like,
Oh, everyone
Yeah.
does.
Why am I?
when they gonna figure out that I have no idea what I'm
Exactly.
doing, right?
Exactly.
I play out the worst case scenario. So when I decide to resign and do this full time, I'm like, okay, it's the worst that could happen. And I was like, it could utterly fail and I could lose everything and I'd have to move back in with my mama. And I said, could I handle that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. And I'll work at Target and clean bathrooms if I need to make ends meet, right? So it's just,
It's funny because my worst case scenario is having to go back to a corporate job.
well, that's,
Even if I fail, I can figure out how to do something else.
yeah, like, I mean, honestly, Target is my escape fantasy sometimes. Like, their day is sort of like, gosh, I could just,
For the
you
discount.
just ring it. Well,
Oh.
you're not wrong, right? But just, I get to ring things up. And then at the end of the day, I go home.
Yeah.
And then I am finished with work. That sounds just like luxury.
Yeah, so mine is the Walmart greeter, right? I can just
You-
stand there and talk to everyone that goes by. Yeah.
It's that or a jerk chicken hut in Jamaica where I just sell like
Oh,
red stripe.
wow.
So it depends on the day. That's when I was at Booz Allen, there's one of my mentors suggested, one of my mentors taught me a thing. I don't know that I can say it on air.
If you don't want to, it's okay.
Oh no, I can tell the story. I just, the specific name of it. But basically those moments when you're just overwhelmed with work and you find yourself emotionally disengaging, she said, take a carecation. She's like, a carecation. She said, you care all the time. You give so much. Take 2 weeks off from giving the care. And what you'll find is that you will eventually make your way back into it. She's like, do 25% because your 25% is going to be somebody else's 100
That's
anyway.
great
right.
advice.
It is, right?
That
And
is.
so it started with me lamenting and saying, I'm going to go to this jerk chicken shack. This is like, I'm moving to, she was like, how's your day? I'm like, does it really matter? Any of it? But when I find myself in those moments now, I go back to that conversation. I'm like, okay, 2 weeks, I get 2 weeks to just show up and do the minimum. And then somewhere along that way, something happens. I'm like, oh, but I really want to do that. And so I get back into it.
That's awesome.
Is there any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Probably needs to be the last one, I think.
Okay.
I'm Julia. I'm a director of marketing at an aerospace company. I've had about 12 years of experience in design and marketing. I know I look younger than I am. But
Yeah.
one thing that I think in this part of my career is like the finding camaraderie in the industry. In my own experience, has been really hard. I feel like within, especially women, there's a lot of women in marketing and comms and PR. There can be a little bit of competitiveness. And I'm at this point that I'm like turning around and trying to help the people behind me, to help those people who are wanting to get into this. And I'm not finding resources to like give them to. And so I'm trying to make myself that resource. But if you guys have like a resource of either like really helpful like LinkedIn groups or maybe a podcast to listen to or a conference to go to, something that I can like myself and or give to other people, like here is a community so you don't feel so alone.
So that is real talk, right? That I think that happens in every industry for what it's worth, not just marketing. I think you and I should talk afterwards because so I work on a full 1099 model right now. I pull in I meet people and I'm like, you are amazing and I need you to come on this journey with me. And the majority of people on staff are women. And it's very much a positive, supportive, I won't say familial because I hate that whole like,
Yeah, I don't like that.
like work is not family, but it
No,
is a
it's not.
community. And you're allowed to be a human and you're allowed to get things wrong and learn from it. And so let's talk afterwards. I don't have like, here's the LinkedIn group to go to solve that. But in my experience, you meet the women along the way who, just as you do as friends in life, who become part of your tribe. And you collect them and you keep them close and then they have their own tribe. And those communities start to build sort of organically. So I think full circle could go the human route instead of the technology route. And I suspect that there's something there. But I would love to chat afterwards if you'd like.
And I'd also say I know a podcast called the Tech Aunties.
I see what you did there, Gina. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is something we've been talking about. Is this is our first kind of foray into doing this live and having a little tiny community, you know, in here. But we've been talking about how do we extend that community, and we both come from the marketing technical intersection, and both of us from the very technical side of it. So we have a lot of the same issues, as you probably know. So want to subscribe to us. That's one of the things we're trying to think of, especially in Texas, is to start in Texas of like, how can we grow this into a real community where it's the real live people and helping people. So stay tuned for more from us.
Yeah, so that's validation.
Did you guys plant her to set you up for that? Because I
We totally did.
feel like, okay.
Yeah,
We'll
we
pay
used
later.
AI to
Was it the
generate-
AI?
It was
Does she AI
We
generate it?
generated it up.
She's not an AI. She looks real to me.
She does look great.
All right, we better wrap up though.
Yeah, So Jamie, how can we keep up with you and what you're doing?
Well, we have a website. It's marketdean.biz. I'm working on changing that this year. We're going to do a rebrand. Right, so we might go back to that. Obviously, we are on LinkedIn, so you can find us there.
Okay.
And the aforementioned Cobbler's Kid, that's about all we're doing right now.
Okay, we'll be sure to get those links up. And we're the Tech Aunties podcast. Gina, where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at as Gina Rosenthal, and digitalsunshinesolutions.com. We'd be happy to help you out with any of your product marketing needs. Although we'll find some tech marketers for you if you need that. And also, I just want to remind everybody, subscribe to techaunties.com or whatever podcast platform you like. We're also Tech Aunties on YouTube and Tech Aunties on Instagram, at least for now. We'll see how long that lasts.
And I'm Marian Newsom, and if you're struggling with ethical issues and how to implement AI or how to implement an AI strategy and put governance in place, you can find me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Jamie, for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me. It's fun. Appreciate it.